Welcome to Interactive Storytelling. It's time to take a look at the designer's work process. Naturally, the actual design involves countless decisions of all types and sizes that might have to be re-evaluated and reworked several times. I won't go into such details, but try to give an overall view to the iterative design process that the interactive storytelling requires. To illustrate the designer's task, let's begin by imagining the story world as a landscape of possible stories. In this illustration, the story world is a two-dimensional landscape where the interactor can move around by making decisions. Any location is a possible state for the interactor. A decision moves the interactor to a neighboring state in the landscape. The height of the landscape forms the axis of dramatic tension over the possible states where the interactor can be. The designer's task is to create the dramatic heights. The higher the state, the more dramatic the tension it has. The interactor's movement through the states forms a path. The path could lead the interactor up to a mountain of heightened dramatic tension until at the peak they reach the dramatic necessity. This idea is similar to Laurel's flying wedge of possibilities or Freitag's dramatic arc, which we have seen earlier. The landscape is full of possible paths. Some lead the interactor to new mountains with higher dramatic tension, others stay in the valleys and lead the interactor to other potential mountains to climb. The designer should fill in the story world with potential stories. How well can the designer achieve this goal? The larger and more complex the story world is, the more difficult it is to cover all areas, or at least cover them well. One way to see this is through the designer-interactor contract, where the designer promises to fill in the story world on those parts that the interactor needs in order to play their role. And the interactor, while playing this role, promises that they don't start wandering off to the perimeters of the story world. Another way to see this is through the broad and shallow approach. Areas related to the intended story are covered well, but the more the interactor goes outside of these areas, the shallower the dramatic tension is. With this image in mind, let's turn to the design process. The designer's work when creating a story world is highly iterative. It resembles more software programming than conventional storytelling because it includes rapid feedback, for example from simulation runs, and the possibility to tweak different parameters to fine-tune the outcome. Let's look at the 3 stages of the iterative design process. In the first stage, the designer comes up with ideas on how to extend the story world. This can be a result of pure inspiration, but quite often it's a reaction to the flaws found earlier. In the second stage, the ideas are turned into new content and processes, which are added to the story world. It's also important to constrain the domain, as this new content could open new possibilities that aren't yet handled. For instance, adding a new character might require not only defining its relationships to all the other characters, but redefining the relationships of some of the already existing characters. In the third stage, the changes are simulated, for example by running them through a simulation in a designer-specific platform. This helps the designer to fill out the story world and to detect any surprising behavior. After this, the designer returns back to the first stage. Let's take a step back and look at the overall design process. We can divide it into 3 broader phases. The first one is the concepting or pre-design phase, where the designer sets up the overall parameters of the story world such as its theme and boundaries. The second phase is the actual design phase, where the designer iteratively adds elements to the story world and gets quick simulated feedback on their effect. In each iteration, the designer can engage in another iteration by adding a character, action, or goal into the story world. Each addition needs to be validated promptly. The feedback can be based on different types, such as structural charts or simulation runs with a new character. To have an overall feedback on the iteration, the designer can make multiple simulation runs with a computer-controlled character acting as a stand-in for the human interactor. The feedback from these simulation runs helps the designer to steer the story world towards the goals set in the concepting phase. Once this scenario is complete, the third stage handles its evaluation. At this point, human testers can enter the picture and validate the results from the simulation runs. With this, we are ready to conclude the fourth set of videos. There will be more information relevant to the story world design in the sixth set, when we take a closer look at the story world and its elements. However, it's not yet time for that. In the next, the fifth set of videos, we'll turn our investigating gaze towards the third partaker, the interactor. See you there.